The greatest thing that a man can do is discover his purpose. And it doesn't just happen by accident. We have to actively do it, and there is a process to it. And I would like to share this process with you, because it is like an unlimited motivation glitch. The one which fueled industrial magnates, generals, conquerors, great men of history. Only one thing unites them, not their cute morning routines or their healthy habits, their sleep habits, their top 10 habits of highly successful people. None of that corporate bullshit. It was a strong sense of purpose, which they cultivated throughout the years. It included a motivating vision of the world, or a goal that they were pursuing. It also included a belief in their ability to bring it forth, or what we would call self-efficacy, and also a utilization of their strengths and opportunities. They weren't jack of all trades, but they knew their strengths and they played to them, as in they realized their pathways. This applies to many great men of history, from Muhammad to Kennedy, from Hitler to Rockefeller. I'm not talking morally great. These principles apply to all great men out there. They had a life mission, an awareness of their strengths and weaknesses. They weren't all naturally talented. It took a lot of grit for them to build up their strengths. They were forged and molded by the world around them. So they were aware of their purpose, both in a horizontal manner and in a vertical manner. Because purpose has its many layers like that. Horizontally speaking, it has its social layers, built on culture, religion, many other similar factors. These are the social factors influencing purpose. But then there are the vertical factors, which we could think about like chapters in a book. This is actionable information, by the way, not just abstract information. Writing a life review of some sort would be a way to orientate ourselves for purpose, as has been demonstrated. It isn't only for palliative care per se, but it has its power in discovering our purpose in the current moment. So follow these questions and instructions in order to write a life review, and that is in order to discover a greater sense of purpose. It takes noticing the different twists and turns and themes in our life. It takes noticing a golden string of meaning in order for us to continue this story. Of course, most likely, the great men of history didn't do this consciously, but they had this unconsciously nailed down, that's for certain. By this exercise, we can detach from our situations and rise above them, which is a necessary step for discovering purpose. You become a literary critic of your own life, or basically your own psychotherapist. This is why people go to therapy for, in order to gain comprehension of their life to a greater extent. They need an external observer for this. But we can simulate to some extent this outsider effect by writing a life review. Of course, it doesn't replace psychotherapy, and I'm not saying that, but it is a valuable, actionable step in order for us to gain greater insight into our purpose. It's always about storytelling and about rewriting particular stories. With this technique, we are focusing on the storytelling itself. So thinking about the important scenes of our life is a good way to start with any particular life review. Like with the Pennebaker writing exercise that we can try. Writing about specific traumas of our life is a way that we can gain insight into our purpose as well. Because these are strong emotional events. The ones that have driven many great men around history in order for them to pursue greater purposes. Traumas have motivated great men throughout history. One event might be a great catalyst in how we conduct ourselves in our life, as has been demonstrated by the many examples throughout history. They are gold for purpose. This exercise, the one that I talked about, the Pennebaker writing exercise, is about writing for 15 to 20 minutes for a couple days a week, non-stop, about a deeply emotionally charged event of our life, possibly traumatic. This is a storytelling technique in order to release a lot of the emotional tension of traumas, but also to give comprehension to it, a sense of coherence, which is synonymous with purpose, as is demonstrated by its three aspects, which is comprehensibility, manageability, and meaningfulness. The three aspects that I talked about previously as well map pretty well onto these three. It also makes us aware of our values. It is also a vital exercise in order for us to discover purpose. Realizing our own values and affirming them has been shown to have great psychological benefits for us on our sense of purpose. This is fuel to us, to fuel our self-efficacy on our purpose. In order for us to use these emotionally charged events, traumas, great failures of our life, in order for them to give us fuel, as demonstrated by the examples throughout history. Fuel is not a chooser of persons. It is indifferent to morality. Dark motivation has driven great men, both moral and immoral, throughout history. And we can utilize this power for ourselves as well. A strong sense of motivation has three aspects to it that we need to get down for ourselves as well. Great men throughout history did. It is strong principles, a strong moral character, or a role model, we could call it, and strong emotions that drive us. We could call it a hypomania of some sorts. The examples here demonstrate these principles. We can reword the principles themselves as values that we pursue. And with the exercise that I'm talking about, the self-affirmation exercise, we can set up our own principles, the ones that allow us to have greater emotional self-regulation and also for a greater sense of purpose. Name 10 of your values for this exercise from this list of them. And in order for this to make this an actionable habit, think about the habits that you're currently doing. Possibly you have a habit journal of some sorts. Attach the values to those habits themselves. It has been shown that a lack of value-focused actions is a way that we lose coherence for ourselves and become depressed. A lack of value-based actions is a big cause for purposelessness. So a bringing of alignment between actions and values is an actionable step for purposeful conduct. We can make a life pie exercise or a happiness pie exercise, these are called. As in, give particular values, particular percentages, and then shift our actions so that it matches them more correctly. It is similar to the cookie jar idea of David Goggins, that we make a list of our achievements and get motivated by them. Writing it down on a piece of paper and having it close to us. Writing a large list of reasons why we are doing what we are doing. Writing those principles out. Naming them. Creating our own 10 commandments, basically. These need to be reminders of who we are. This is for more of a thinking type personality.
What the hell's going on, bro? Oh, what are you doing? You're not the thinker!
But more of a creative type personality, a best possible self-exercise would be beneficial for you. It is the imagining of our best possible self, writing a day in their life, imagining their beliefs, their values, and everything that they have. Going into deep specifics like the house, the exact house that they own, the exact cars, the exact body that they have, everything about them. Writing a day in their life, from waking up to the moment that they go to sleep. How would it look if all of your goals in life were realized just like that, by the movement of a magic wand? You can put yourself in this position, engaging all of your senses, imagining how this life would look from the inside, from your mind's eye. The only limit here is your imagination. This is to create a strong goal, a strong vision of life. The one that I talked about in the beginning as extremely valuable for greatness. You can create a vision board of some sorts. Great men have done so, to some extent of course. They use their imagination to create a meaningful vision of life. One which they were pursuing with mania, with strong vigor. This is the unlimited motivation glitch. If this vision is highly specific and you know exactly what you want, the energy just comes out of somewhere, somehow, as how it appears. And I know this from my own experience. When the goals become murky, the actions become murky as well. We lose motivation when we lose sight of the goal. So a reminder of this goal is of great importance here. Not saying that those great men had smarter goals and whoop plans and if-then strategies. I'm not saying that these things are bad either. Actually, I am saying that they are extremely valuable, and they had something similar to them. They followed the principles without knowing the words for them, of course. Create smarter goals, actually, is what I'm saying. I'm not dunking on them. Despite being corporate solutions, I'm not against them. We know that they weren't autistically pursuing self-improvement. We know that they followed many unhealthy habits. Of course, I'm not saying that they didn't, but they worked, they read, they trained ruthlessly, depending on the person. And they were always improving themselves. They didn't know much about biohacking and lifestyle modifications in order to optimize their brain performance. But you do have access to that information. You do have access to much biohacking knowledge in order to optimize the function of your brain, your body, by optimizing your sleep, your diet, and everything around it. The chemicals that you consume, the digital applications that you use, neurofeedback, artificial intelligence usage. All of these great men throughout history would probably be the most optimized for those things, as the great men of today are. This is not shocking information. The highest performers need the highest performance boosts as well. But it doesn't have to be an exclusive area of theirs. They can utilize many of the free and low expense biohacking techniques that they have. But that takes extraordinary effort. Extraordinary achievement takes extraordinary effort. And that is the one that also separated the greats from the mediocres. Extraordinary effort. Here are just some of the daily routines of great men. They always interested me, because everybody has 24 hours in the day. And how could great men achieve so much more with the exact 24 hours? They all worked hard for their achievements. And they were also aware of their strengths and opportunities in life. This is a lot harder to bring into practice than the previously ones. As I said, they weren't jack of all trades. They knew their exact signature strengths and they played to them. And they also knew the opportunities around them in order to utilize them. Those two things are not separate. The opportunities and the strengths themselves. They were also good at attracting people who filled their gaps as well. But we don't know what gaps we need to fill with other people if we don't know our signature strengths. Knowing about your signature strengths is one of the ways that we can increase efficacy or self-efficacy. The belief that you can bring forth the realization of your goals. Take a test in order for you to figure out your signature strengths. Here are some questions in order to figure it out, but you can try taking this test or this test for figuring out your signature strengths. It has also very many benefits demonstrated in the scientific literature. There are also personality tests in order for you to figure out where you might be lacking more. Of course, you might intuitively know these things, but it's still pretty good to know about these things. I know it helped me a lot to know about specifically my personality types and phenotypes and chronotypes and genetic types and types of all sorts. It allows us for optimization, okay? It allows us for purposeful optimization. These are the vitals of purpose that I talked about, as in values, interests, temperament, activities, or the habits, biohacking basically, life mission, and strengths. These are the 6 elements of purpose. It isn't as simple as I may make it out to be. It takes hard, effortful work in order to bring purpose to fruition. Just knowing about these things is not enough. You have to actually act, pursue the activities themselves in order for the purpose to be made manifest to us. Sometimes it may take isolating ourselves in nature, going off in a stoic retreat with a pen and paper in order for us to figure out our purpose. And I will give you questions in order to ponder there. This is a therapeutic technique as well, by the way. I'm not making any of these up. It takes a lot of deliberation and trial and error in order for us to discover our purpose. but it is all worth it in order to activate this unlimited motivation glitch for our life. It is an undercurrent, a substrate that we can tap into at any time that we feel doubt and anxiety and fear. I think it is worth to cultivate in our life. But if it would be easy, then everybody would do it. And because it is so hard, only a few people do. So this potential lays dormant in a lot of us still. It isn't mystical or magical. Greatness isn't mystical or magical. It has a formula to it. Not an exact step-by-step guide, but there is a formula to it. It is still hard fucking work. No easy 5-step plan in order for us to manifest. Just be mindful of what it takes for us to be great. Just be mindful of the cost of what it takes for us to become purposeful. But it is worth it. There is an aspect of transcendence for purpose. And there is an acting of beyond the self. It isn't for the self, but for beyond it. This is the only way that we can ever bear this burden. We can never truly bear the burden of purpose without it being for something higher than us. It is a communication to you exactly, not to any general idea of an audience, but to you specifically. I'm talking to you. So pay attention. Suffering is inevitable, but just as Epictetus said, I know that I must die, but must I die wailing? We can talk about morning routines and brain optimization strategies and healthy habits to optimize performance, and that is all valuable, but that is only valuable subsumed under a sense of purpose, a goal to pursue, and it also makes it easier, as demonstrated in the scientific literature. Self-improvement is easier if it's done for a purpose, not just willy-nilly. I know this from experience. I know that I didn't have a strong sense of purpose in my life, and that is why I want to say this to you as well. That I don't believe it is something that only the greats can benefit from. But you can. I didn't have a strong sense of purpose, so I relapsed over and over again. Because I just couldn't. I wasn't motivated enough. And discipline also only exists under a sense of purpose. A discovered sense of purpose is what led the greats, possibly people that you look up to, in order for them to completely change their life. It takes a radical shift in identity in order for us to get on self-improvement. It always takes a catalyst for it to be actually permanent, and not just something that we do as a fad. Purpose is this motivation exactly. Our purpose needs to give us flow, a feeling of control, transcendence, and shifting of identity. Flow is the optimal experience that purpose needs to give us. It needs to stretch our limit just right, not to go far beyond it and enter anxiety, but not to go below it, which would be boredom. This is the most powerful tool for discovering purpose. This is why I left it for last. Think of the greatest moments of flow in your life. The moments where time just ceased to be for you. Here are some questions for that. What were you doing? Who were you with? How did you know that you were doing well? What was the feedback? What were the clear goals of the thing itself? What strengths were you utilizing during that period? Put this down on a piece of paper. Try this exercise in order for you to discover your purpose. It may give you deep insight that you might have not realized before. Doing this exercise with another person might be deeply beneficial for it, because it might help you get greater insight into it, things that you might have not realized here. There is an aspect of storytelling to it. Flow moments are the ones that lead to the greatest growth of character. This is why it's defined as something that we would do for its own sake. It is intrinsically motivating to do flow activities. A life that is optimized for flow is the greatest life possible. And it isn't an easy life. A life optimized for flow is not an easy life. It is quite a difficult life, but it is still much worth it. And we don't even have to change our careers for this. There is life crafting and job crafting in order for us to gain the benefits of flow without having to change careers or upending our whole lives. We can change how we approach our jobs, and we can turn them into callings, as we could say. Job crafting and life crafting means that we change how we approach the work that we are doing, our view of what we are doing, giving it greater meaning. It also means environmental shifting. These are the conditions for flow, and as you can see, we can optimize for this by using our signature strengths more in our work, or having gamification for it. We can change how we behave and feel about our work as well, and we can also change who we interact with. We can change these things if the work allows us greater flexibility. And if it doesn't allow us for greater flexibility, then we can change the things that we can, because there are always things that we can change. One of the biggest examples of that is our attitude towards it. Changing our attitude towards it is always within our power. And you can think from this perspective. These are the tools that were mentioned in the video. Go back to the places themselves if you're curious about actually doing the activities mentioned. Pick one of these tools and just try it. They can be life-changing if you allow them to be. If you're interested more about purpose discovery, then join our school community, the Purpose School, by clicking on the top link in the description. Click and watch the video on the screen, and remember to waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be, and just be one.
Roger, roll, Discovery. Discovery's roll maneuver is complete.